Brian Runnels. I am with Reliance Partners. We're an insurance agent based out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm their VP of Safety. And the one thing I've never been accused of is not being able to be heard. So tone that down a little bit. But one of the things that we focus on a lot when we go in and talk to a carrier is their maintenance program. Because typically, one of the two highest scores a company has, especially a smaller company, is either their hours of service or their vehicle maintenance. And that can come into play during an audit that if you've got hours of service issues, that's already putting you in danger. The vehicle maintenance can push you over the edge and end up with a conditional and or an unsatisfactory rating. So keeping the maintenance files and keeping the things that are required by the FMCSA on your vehicle maintenance is key to surviving that part in an audit. So what are the requirements? Well, a truck maintenance file needs to have the required documents. There's going to be 4 documents that I'm going to show you. And if you want copies of these documents, we can talk afterwards. And I'll give you my card, you can send me an email, and I'll send you the PDFs of those documents, okay? So the maintenance cover sheet includes the vehicle's VIN number, make, model, its vehicle number, the year, and the tire size. Why the tire size? Well, it's going a long way to showing what the load capacity is for that vehicle and what type of trucking that you're doing. A schedule highlighting the type and due date of inspections and maintenance records to show the repairs performed. Annual inspection reports, they need, we'll get into the time frame on these, DVIRs and records of repairs for the vehicle inspection reports, and a record of systematic maintenance, including the documentation of repairs and preventative maintenance. So your PM services, and anything that was repaired. So that's what kind of the first one looks like. That's the cover sheet. This one goes a little bit more in depth because it actually has the the systematic repair part of it in it. But you can see the make, year, serial number, VIN number, tire size, company ID, and then the stuff that was worked on and when. There's an annual inspection report. This one's really long. I know there's some that are condensed down into 1 or 2 pages. This one I think is actually like 6 pages long, but I didn't put all 6 pages in there. The thing that's circled up there is one of the things that gets overlooked a lot. And it's asking you, is the mechanic that's working on your vehicle qualified to be doing annual inspections and or brake adjustments? Now, the misconception on that is there is no certification for those. Can you go somewhere and get Bendix certified? Yeah, Bendix can certify a mechanic that they can work on their product. But the qualifications just means either by training or experience that the person is qualified to do those annual inspections. It's 1 year of 1 year of doing annual inspections with somebody else, or 1 year of being a mechanic, or they've gone through some sort of training program. I went through one last year through Fox Valley Tech up in Wisconsin. It was a training on how to do annual inspections. I mean, I was already qualified. I've worked in a shop. I drove for 20 years. I've got enough experience doing inspections that I had that anyway. So that's what the inspector qualification looks like. And once again, all these forms I can make accessible to you. This one just wants you to check a box. Is it experience? Is it training? And then these get put in your mechanic's file. If you're using an outside shop to do your annual inspections, you have every right to ask for this, if you want. It'll cover you in an audit that yes, we work with ABC maintenance shop, or it could be Love's, TA, whoever it is, And yes, we've seen their qualifications, okay? So an annual inspection checklist. These are the things that have to be looked at during the annual inspection. The steering, suspension, frame, tires, wheels, wipers, brakes, coupling devices, exhaust, fuel system, lighting, and loading devices. The question that I often get on this is, let's say the air conditioner doesn't work during an annual inspection. Is that something you'd write up? The answer is no. Because it's not a safety-related item on the truck. Now, the heater and defroster, yes. But not something like the air conditioner. There's the brake inspector qualifications, basically the same form as the annual inspection one, okay? Here's the inspection, repair, and maintenance record. Has the vehicle information at the top, and then it just starts date, the service performed, was it an inspection, was it routine maintenance, was it a repair, and any notes. Could be it was done road service, and the repair orders attached. Or if you're doing it digitally, you know, it's put in there by PDF. And this sheet can go on and on and on and on. Hopefully not too far, because that means that equipment's probably not the best and they're repairing it a lot. DVIR, sorry, that's a 2-pager. I mean, we remember the old books that we had to write up. And man, as a driver, there was no better feeling when the FMCSA said, you know, if you don't have a defect, no more DVIRs required. But under certain circumstances there are. Hazmat, people carrying, stuff like that. But I think where we're falling short now is we're not doing DVIRs when we should. And these need to be put in the file. Whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to hit that. These need to be put in a file when there is a defect. Let's say one of your trucks gets inspected. They find a light out. It's not something that's going to shut them down. Okay, it's just a clearance light. Headlight, they could shut it down, turn signal, but it's just a clearance light. At the end of the day, that driver probably should have a DVIR for that light being repaired, have a repair order for it, and everything matches up. Because during an audit, they're going to look at those. And they're going to want to see, because that's how they're going to pull equipment. They're going to pull the equipment that's been inspected in the last 90 days, especially if it had a defect on it. And they're going to want to see the DVIR that goes with it and the repair order. So a best practice on a maintenance file. DVIRs turned in by drivers should be reviewed by whoever's doing that, proper department. Any issues should be corrected, and the copy of the DVIR should be attached to an invoice for filing. This shows that the systematic maintenance issue has been dealt with. The invoice provides evidence of it being completed, and this is helpful, like I said, when an audit comes in and they want to take a look at it. Record retention. Annual inspections need to be kept for 14 months. Okay? So there'll be an overlap of your annual inspections. Vehicle maintenance record should be kept for at least 12 months or 6 months after the vehicle has been moved out of the fleet. If you sold it, it went to the boneyard, whatever, 6 months, you got to keep that stuff. And if it was put in the boneyard due to a crash, you better keep those maintenance records for the entire time, forever, okay? And DVIRs must be kept for 90 days. After 90 days, they can be purged. One huge advantage of using some sort of digital record keeping, because that will automatically purge. So let's talk about how maintenance gets pulled in. What brings vehicle maintenance into question during an audit? One, the out of service rate. You can see this carrier here, out of the 93 total inspections they had, 36 of them were out of service on the vehicles. That puts their vehicle maintenance rate at 84%. Okay, that's a red flag. And then this one's also got hours of service issues right there on the borderline of being in alert status, but it's in alert nonetheless. So this one here is really a prime candidate for an audit. Now, I say that. The FMCSA, they were in here earlier, those two folks were in here. The FMCSA has a total of 1,100 people working for them. That's it. How many motor carriers do we have? What, 300 and some thousand? That's why they kind of talked about, when Cab was in here talking, that, or no, it wasn't them, it was somebody else. Over 90% of motor carriers, of registered DOT numbers, are unrated. Because they're only going to really go after the carriers that look to be an issue. And this one here, if that hours of service comes out of alert, man, it's off the radar. It really is. And going back to that real quick, did anybody listen or does anybody know that ISS system? Okay, where they were talking about the red, yellow, green light. This is why hours, and it's a sidetrack from maintenance, but hours of service is the only basic that if it goes into alert status, you automatically go red. All the rest of them could have no score at all. If hours of service goes in alert, you're in inspect status. So if you got DriveWise or pre-pass or somebody like that, you might as well put that in a bunk because it's not going to work for a while. So keep that in mind. So what vehicles are they going to want to see? They're going to see ones that were inspected in the last 90 days. This is if an auditor comes in, or the first thing you're going to get now is the phone call saying, hey, we're going to do an audit. And they're going to send you a list of random drivers and random equipment. It's not random at all. Like that last screen with the hours of service issue, they're going to want to see the drivers that got those inspections. On the equipment side, they're going to want to see the stuff that was inspected in the last 90 days, especially ones that had violations on them, because they're going to try to match up those DVIRs and repair orders. Low-hanging fruit for them. Equipment with multiple violations. Let's say they've been inspected 3 times in the last year. Every single time it's got violations on it. They're going to want to see that. They're going to want to see repair orders and DVIRs, annual inspections on all of those pieces of equipment. It is a paperwork nightmare. And any equipment that's been involved in a post-crash inspection. And those are dangerous because depending on how bad the inspection was, due to the damage, if the inspector did it right, there's a notation saying this was caused due to the crash, or this wasn't part of the crash, this was an actual defect. But sometimes that's very, very subjective. Okay? This was a post-crash inspection, and this is a really high level or a high possible nuclear verdict based on maintenance. Okay? This is what the vehicle looked like when they did the post-crash inspection. Okay? This truck hit a pedestrian, so there was no damage really to the truck. And if you want to go even farther, does anybody remember that when Dwayne Haskins, the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, was killed? This is the truck that did it. Okay? Out of service, got tire issues, it's got brake issues, and he was overweight. This is the whole basis of the lawsuit, right here. And they filed it a day before Governor DeSantis put in the tort reform law there. So they can go for, and they will, go for millions. So these will be a piece of equipment that they want to see during an audit. How many pieces of equipment will be reviewed? Well, the auditor will use a selection criteria set forth by the FMCSA based on size, and they take a percentage of those, and that will determine how many pieces of equipment will be looked at. So, maintenance files. Just look at the one on your left. If you're a 50-unit company, okay, they're going to want to look at 8 maintenance files. And they're probably also going to look at 8 driver files. And drug and alcohol for 8 drivers. And DVIRs for 8 pieces of equipment. Could be trucks, could be trailers, probably be a mix of both. Like I said, they're going to base that on the vehicles that they see. Or if you're 1 to 5, they want to see everything you got. Okay? DVIRs. If you have 15 vehicles, they want to see 5. Now, when you're looking at 5, you're thinking, okay, what if they do find something wrong? How bad does it hurt? If they find violations of 10% of what they look at, like if you got 4 DVIRs that are good, and you got 1 doesn't have a repair order for it, or there's a defect with no DVIR to match it up with, that one's out of compliance. Unfortunately, when they're only looking at 5, missing 1 is 20%. You failed that category. Okay, so it doesn't take a lot. So the smaller of a company that you're operating, it's very, very imperative to have this stuff dialed in. But if you're not getting this inspected a ton and you don't have much in the way of scores and stuff like that, man, you're just gonna be flying under the radar. So vehicle maintenance is what they call factor 4. There's 6 factors. 5 factors. 5 factors. Factor 4 is vehicle maintenance. You automatically fail factor 4 if your out of service rate is above the national average, pass or fail. Not the 10%, pass or fail. Same thing with crashes. If your crash rate is above the average of 1.5 accidents per million miles, you fail that. There's an easy way to do that. I'll take another side note. You take your number of crashes that you had in the last 12 months, multiply it by 1,000,000, divide it by the total miles of your fleet. If it's above 1.5, you could be on the radar. Okay? So if factor 4 is failed, during an audit, it may not be upgraded until the out of service rate is back under the national average. Here's the hard part about that. Many, many states are not doing voluntary inspections anymore. There's a few out there. Tennessee's pretty good, Florida's pretty good. There's a few others, but I'm in Indiana. No, they're not going to do it. Because the only way to really get that out of service percentage down is to get clean inspections or let time pass so some of this stuff falls off. Because it does fall off over time. But if you can't get those clean inspections, it's really hard to get that rate down below the national average. And when you're working on what they call a improvement plan, you have to prove by way of training, results, things like that, that you're improving your performance as a company. And the best way to do that is to show a lower out of service rate. But it's hard to do because you can't get voluntary inspections. And the reason states don't do that is because carriers, if they got a brand new piece of equipment, man, they take that thing right down to the state and ask them for a level 1. They put the sticker in the window and you're good to go. They're not in the business of doing it. They're in the business of getting unsafe equipment off the road. Anybody in here on the FMC? No. But that's what we're stuck with. So how to be ready? Have your maintenance files organized, just like you should have your driver files organized. If I can implore you to go digitally, great. That would be awesome. Keep pre and post-trip inspection on the top of everyone's mind. I mean, it's beating a dead horse, I know, for some fleets. Begging, please just look at the equipment. Because one of the biggest violations out there, one of the most costly violations, is a flat tire. I don't know, Cab was up here, and I think the number was 118,000 flat tires that have been registered in inspections over the last, I don't know if that was a 12-month or 24-month period. But regardless, you know what every driver said when that inspector found a flat tire? It was fine this morning. No, they didn't check it. They didn't check it. And what constitutes a flat tire? Is it all the way flat? It's 50% of whatever the tire's rated to carry, or rated air pressure, sorry. So if that thing's rated at 110 max air pressure, at 55 pounds, that tire's flat. And it's out of service. Flat tires are out of service, 100%. That carries 10 points on a CSA times 3, because everything is time weighted. 30 points for one flat tire. That carries more than some drug and alcohol violations. But it is so important that the FMCSA thinks that flat tires contribute to crashes. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. So tires are a huge thing, and like I said, they're almost an automatic out of service, and it's real costly for the companies. I'm probably telling you nothing that you don't already know when it comes to how much it costs for a road service to replace a tire. It's ridiculous. So train the drivers on their responsibility, not only to the vehicle inspections, but to the requirements of their inspection paperwork. What do they do with that? We talk to a lot of companies that they don't even know about half the inspections they've had, because the driver doesn't turn the paperwork in because he doesn't want to get in trouble. All that does is bring a ton more heartburn down the road for the company. So, and they don't understand that, hey, this thing's got to be signed off by not only the person that made the repair, but it's got to be signed off by a company official and sent back to the state that it originally came from. Now, not all states require it anymore, but there are a ton that still do. And to have the breakdown, I don't know it. So it's important that all that paperwork gets turned back in. So DVIRs, repair orders, and just having the inspection paperwork is there. And getting annual inspections done. And having them know what to do with the paperwork on an annual inspection. Does it need to be in the truck? Not necessarily. If you've got the stickers that you can put on the side of the truck, and it won't wear off, or somebody needs to at least manage the view of those annual inspection stickers. Remember the ones that they're almost like aluminum, and you would just press real hard? They're not using those anymore, are they? No? They should. I mean, it seemed a lot better than a black magic marker. The black magic marker always seems to wear off. Permanent. So, that should be part of a driver's vehicle inspection, pre-trip, post-trip, whatever. He doesn't need to look at it every day, but he does need to look at it on occasion to make sure that it's still legible. Or the paperwork goes in the truck. And have a third party review your maintenance files. That's my little shameless plug for the safety consulting that I do. Okay, that's all I'm going to put out there. Unless you want to talk about it afterwards. But have somebody take a look at those, whether it's in your building or outside. Okay, I buzzed through that. Is there any questions on the paperwork or what it looks like when someone comes in and wants to start nosing around in your maintenance files, and how you should be prepared for that? Man, I made short work of that. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And if anybody wants more information on those forms or the presentation, I'll hang out for a few minutes and we can talk.